We lost Keon, but hello, and he'll be back. Hello, everyone. How are you doing this evening? As always, we're also happy. We're all happy to see you. Um, we're the discussion that we're going to have tonight. I understand that there's some people out there right now today that is very anxious to have this conversation, but at the same time probably have a lot of feelings and anxiety about what's been going on lately in our city. But today, is very important. It's a crucial part to what has been happening. Um, there was a protest that we had along with Shanae Jackson and Danielle. We were all there to help support and to give, you know, um, and to give whatever they needed, to give the community what they needed and the family what they needed. And we were all there. And when I say community, I mean this is for all of us. Um, so this is the follow up after the march, the protest that we have, and what we need to understand is that when we have a protest, what happens after the protest is just as crucial as the protest. So there are some steps that we need to take, and we need to be persistent when it comes to getting justice for Terrell, and we should be very vigilant when it comes to saying his name. So when we're talking to people about this situation, we need to say his name all the time. Terrell, 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 Terrell. So we're here for justice for Terrell. We're here for justice for our city. We're here for justice for the community and for things to progress in the future. As everybody know, I'm Ty Loud. We have Shanae Jackson. We have Keon Young. We usually have Nate Turner. I don't know if Nate's going to be here today, but
He won't. He's out of town dealing with a family
he's out
issue.
of town, but I'm sure he's with us in spirit. So today, also, we have had some other incidences that happened, the last 2 days that have happened that have also, just hurt us in our hearts. And we need to also understand that there is a process to that also. So what we're going to talk about today is something that's just not for Terrell, it's for everything that happens after that. So what we do, how we talk, what we say, what comments we make, we need to be aware of what we're saying. We need to know that we have knowledge of what we're saying and how we say things and what we say, how it affects our community and how it affects this fight that we are fighting, because it does. So we're going to start. We're going to start off with Shanae. She's going to, start talking about the things that we do after the protest, which is very, very important. So this is an awesome show. We're going to give you some tips. We're going to keep you informed about what's going on. So I'm ready to get this show started because I am ready to work. How you doing, Shanae and Keon, this evening?
We're doing well. Can we hear me?
I can't hear Keon.
I think he's on mute. Or maybe we can't. So we'll give him a moment to get his sound together. While we're waiting on Keon to get his sound together, I want to actually explain to people what a protest is and what a rally is. And the reason that we want to ensure that we explain to people what they are, because I think a lot of people, we've getting a lot of feedback. There's a lack of understanding. And so the reason for protests and rallies and marches is not where we actually get change. It's actually the first step. It's the steps after the protests and the rallies and the marches are the most pivotal steps in order to enact change. We have protests in order to be able to inform the public, in order to be able to influence the public, in order to be able to educate the public. And we want to make sure that's known. We can do protests to voice displeasure, which we quite often do. We can do it to educate people on issues, thank you, that are coming up. And the reason that we do them in the manner in which we do them, because it's the way to get people's attention. We understand that often fear is a very, very motivating factor. It is one of the reasons that people are sometimes okay with police brutality. It is one of the reasons that people don't speak up for justice. It's one of the reasons that people, move and enact or even live the manner in which they do. And so a lot of times, even protests, rallies, and marches as a way in order to be able to empower people, in order to be able to reduce a level of fear, or even to evoke action from people. Because sometimes we have the inability to get that because there's a level of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I do apologize. Just because of everything that is going on with my own loved ones, this is a very difficult conversation to have, and also understanding where to go. The reason we take the time to educate you all is because the next steps and the next action is what we need in order to get the change that we want to see. We saw how valuable our protests and marches and rallies were during the summer of 2020 after George Floyd was actually murdered before our eyes. We saw the value of protests and marches and rallies back in the 60s when we were able to obtain things like voting rights. Even with Stonewall, when it came to LGBTQIA rights, it was after people from that were in the bar called Stonewall in New York. They showed up repeatedly every night for over a week and would not actually not stop returning. And it's because they felt like enough was enough. We are ones that we really fully and understand that even throughout protests have always been peaceful protests, and marches and rallies are to build a sense of community. And so we want people to know and understand why those there are a level of value. We want to explain those because even as we had a rally, and then we had a protest and a march on behalf of Terrell Bradley and the brutalization that he suffered at the hands of Gainesville Police Department. Many people are talking about actually having a rally or a march as it relates to the gun violence within our communities. And so we've had a few. I know a few years ago, Tyra actually coordinated a actual march and an actual event. I actually drafted the pledge as it related to that. We have had meetings in response to gun violence, but one of the challenges that we're having is keeping people aboard to stay the course and on the long haul. And so it's our hope and our belief by educating everyone that they have the ability to get plugged in, get engaged, and actually stay as it pertains to the long haul. So I want to just turn it over to Tyra and to Keon so each of them can actually give just some feedback on their experiences previously in rallies and protests and things that they participated in. And I would like for them to be able to share their own personal feelings, things that they learned from those particular protests, and things that they would like for people to take with them.
Um, well, I think it was a few years ago, about 3 years ago. I'm thinking. I did a walk out the violence march and rally with Norris Anderson. He contacted me and he said, "Hey, we need help. It's for men, but we've never done this before, and you've done these things. Can you please help us?" So me and Nate help out. And it was at first it was kind of hard, to get people to come, but they came out. We had vendors, we had free food. The guys did the march. They had their signs. They were getting their message across. They walked the whole east side. They did Lincoln Estates. They did Duval. Sugar Hill. They did all that. After the march, that's where I think the frustration began to set in, with me and probably with Norris also, because everybody is all into things in the hype of things. So when the hype of the moment come, yeah, this is what we need to do. We did it. You happy? We're gonna make a change. This is what we need to do. See us. We out here. But then when after everything is over and it's really time to do the work, our experience was, minimal. People didn't come. They didn't keep their commitments. I understand that people have lives, and they have to do what they need to do. But this is our life, so we're not going to be able to go on with our daily lives because it's these very things that affect our very lives. So just right now. As far as resources, we made it work. We made it work with money. We made it work with the t-shirts. We made it work with everything else. That's people think that's the hard part, but really that's the easiest part. The hardest part is doing the work after the march. And so there was a strategy we had put in place, what we was going to do, and we had groups of people on who was going to do what. And I think at that time I was just coming. I was doing some other things, but I was just coming out of the with Julius at Little Africa. So there was a lot of kind of people involved to get people to do work after we have these things, and that was the disappointment. But you got to keep going. You got to keep going, and I was telling the fellas that if you keep pushing and you keep going and you keep calling and you keep having these, sometimes you got to have more than one march. Sometimes you got to have two or three. Sometimes you got to have more than one rally. Sometimes you just got to keep the momentum coming, and you got to. I always say this, like, you got to bait people sometimes, and you really do. Sometimes you got to bait them with food or march or T-shirts. Come out, it's for the community. The men is going to walk with their sons. The sons is going to walk with their friends. So you do different things. But at the end of the day, if we do not follow through what the course was after the march and everything, it just it loses momentum. And I think I think the show is perfect, because we need to really understand that after all this is what's important.
I guess to piggy off a little bit what you were saying, with different a lot of it been like be doing different stuff and support and just things going on in the community like
His sound.
uh like she was
Mhm.
is it bad?
There you go.
Is it
You're going in and out. Can't hear
It's very low.
you. Yeah.
Y'all Wi-Fi must be included with y'all rent. So they gave y'all the best.
I mean, the video is fine. He just needs to. We need to get some audio.
can y'all hear me?
We can hear you now. Well, in and out. Can't hear you no more.
Hold on, let me try to take the case off my phone maybe. I don't know, I'm sorry y'all.
All right, there you go.
Yeah. Is that better? That
Better,
better?
much better. Mm-hmm.
Better. It was the case on the phone maybe.
Oh, that's much
Okay.
better.
Yeah. But I was saying, I'm sorry to get back. As far as my experiences go with like different protests and stuff like that, it's been like with my mom and doing the different stuff that she was saying a few years ago. We actually did what it's called it's downtown by the but we had like on the
Yeah,
gun
the Bo
violence
Diddley. Mm-hmm.
when it first started and different stuff like that. And in my experiences, it's it's like the people that are there, they kind of energize the situation that's going on, or like this, like you said, it's like okay, like a lot of recourse,
Mm-hmm.
um, or like all right, what's next? Like, all right, we gather, and we feel like we on one accord. We all feel like this was a unity in the how to move and what's next. Kind of getting that together, but it's like I feel, like we starting to see more of that. Where see people like my mom and Miss Tyler and it's a lot of different people that got y'all out, and there's more people following that. Like more people that like come up y'all clan and say, hey, we're gonna attack it this way. We feel like the root housing instability and voting rights and different stuff. We're gonna address it. I feel like you know, like as of like lately, even like the last like that's more of the now. are y'all gonna get registered to be here at the city commission meeting? And now our advisory board and holding these people accountable, in our communities, hold ourselves accountable. Like in the conversation and like if we gonna ever get to like that, that's what the conversation gonna have to be. So general senses of my experiences with different.
Yeah. It's the moment. Like now we have moments, right? We have moments and people get in the moment, so they get in the hype because it's fresh, so everybody is hurting and everybody want justice right now and it's fresh. So and you see this not only in our community, but even on the news all over the world. Everybody is in the moment, in the hype of things. And then for some reason it dies down and then nobody has time and then something else happens and then, oh yeah, I want to go to the march and protest, we need justice, let me sign up, and then after a while it just goes away again. And then you do have great leaders in the community that have done these things before. And then when you do have leaders in the community like I and Shanae, and we do things and then we keep, because we keep in the momentum. It's just like I told her today, as restless as we are, we keep up the momentum. And so we're constantly, I know I have, sometimes, it takes new people coming because, we're in different age brackets to give new things. But we got to do something. We got to keep going. It's got to be something fresh, something new, or maybe it is the thing that we had to keep on doing that just never was done. And so that's what Shanae is going to talk about today. I don't think that the game changed. It's still the same game. We just got to play it.
I think even before we get to the point of talking about how to change the game, we should talk and address why are things just a moment instead of a movement. I think for me, being a person who studies history, we understand that change did not come overnight. I like to use the Montgomery Bus boycotts as an example. A lot of people attribute Rosa Parks to the reason that we got off the back of the bus. A lot of people don't realize that Rosa Parks was just a catalyst. It
Mm-hmm.
actually was a woman, and I apologize for not being able to call her name at the time, who could have been the catalyst, who actually refused to get on the back of the bus. They would not allow her to be the face of the movement because she was a teen mom. And I want to highlight those kinds of things. I think sometimes our change realized or our change is slowed down because we as a people are too busy trying to pick and dictate who should be the face of the movement. I remember when people stated, even with George Floyd, like we chose him as the face of the movement. We didn't choose anything. The system and what Derek Chauvin did chose him. And I think if we are better about understanding that we advocate for what's right, no matter who it is that we're advocating, no matter who we look for, it'll look to, then we would actually be able to realize change a great deal quicker. We're always looking for the perfect person. We're always looking for the perfect situation in order to say, okay, we're going to advocate and get behind that. We're always justifying, well, I'm not going to advocate for this because there shouldn't have been. Now utilize even the situation with Terrell and GPD. Well, oh, he shouldn't have done this, he shouldn't have done that. That does not mean that he's not entitled to justice. There is a judicial system for a reason. And it's
Mm-hmm.
to me, the very same people who tell us to trust the system as we go through this system are mistreated are the exact same people that think it's okay for law enforcement to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. And so we can't reconcile that. And I need us to understand right is right, and that stands on its own, even if when it's uncomfortable, even if a person in the situation did something that was imperfect. And we have aligned ourselves so much to that, and we cleave to that we're not willing to get our hands dirty. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the work that needs. It's the grimy work that getting your hands dirty. That's how you push change, and that's how you get things done. We also are into piety, and piety is how we look doing this work. There's a lot of people that look all frilly, they want their hair done, they want their makeup and those things. This work is thankless. This work
Mm-hmm.
is hard. And typically when you're working, you don't really have time to even keep up with your appearance because you're doing the work of the people. Additionally, we want people to we don't let people know what the challenges are. Many of us that do this work, we are struggling mentally and emotionally. We are spent.
We are overwhelmed. But I think most often we are spent overwhelmed because we're not willing to all be honest with each other and talk about the trauma that some of the things that we endure, or the trauma of this work, or even being let down by people that you're working and advocating for, let down by people that you're working and advocating with. And I think we need to start actually there. And what is very intriguing, me being a person who watches and who pays attention, and a lot of us see it in this work, is the people who have so many negative things to say about how we're doing the work. The people who have so many negative things to say, well, why are we doing the work? The people who have so many negative things to say, well, this is not the particular time to do the work. And then when something happens to them, or something happens to someone close to them, then they literally come to the table with the exact same solutions that you've given years ago. I utilize education advocacy as an example. There were some people, and I'm very clear with that, who were, when I stated this is not about parents, it's about systems and how we are able to help parents to be more capable if we fix the systems. Some of those same people in 2016 who stated it was all the parents' fault, once it became their child and once the system was not just, then they now understand what I'm stating when it's systems issues. And so us to understand and look outside of ourselves and our own unit and understand as a community we're interconnected and interwoven. And knowing
Mhm.
with my own love, when I realized for so many of us, we often feel helpless. So when we feel helpless, our response is to look at everybody else and pick apart what they are doing or pick apart what they're not doing. And those are one of the things that we have to unlearn in order to be able to proceed forward, in order to do this well work and to do this work well. For young organizers, we have there's a special place. And when I say young organizers, I mean like Keon's age. Keon is 23. I mean like our youth who is like I have some youth that actually work for me, and we're talking ages 13 to 17. They've not been jaded by the world. They are visionaries. They have great ideas. So me being a person who understands that, I can help foster that. In many organizations, we're not the older guard is not willing to even take ideas or examples and things from the younger guard. And what's interesting, like for example, with them, they learned how to mail a letter. It's something they'd never done. And we did a mass mail out where they actually had to address the mail over 100 letters. I think sometimes with the older guard, because they don't know how to do things like that, that we know how to do, we minimize the things that they know how to do that we don't. And so we need
Mhm.
to watch those particular things. We also need to understand that while some of us need to be at the forefront, we need to educate ourselves first and be willing to do that work. The person that is at, or the people that are at the forefront, you have to be educated on what it is. You have to be very candid. You have to be willing to be authentic. And the reason for that is because you're trying to push change. Change is uncomfortable, even for people who want change. So,
Mhm.
therefore, any little mishap or any little misstep is going to justify a person exiting from being at the actual table. And knowing and understanding that. We also understand too that the hardest work and the most valuable work is the work that we don't see. And that's the phone
Mhm.
calls being made. That's the knocking on doors. That's the sending emails. That's the making phone calls. That's data entry. The most thankless parts of the work is actually the work that's actually going to push that change. And and additionally, a barrier that we have to overcome is our own egos. We have to get our egos out of the way. This whole deal, I'm not willing. And Tyra, oh, she drives us home. She like a dead horse. This whole deal about I'm not going to work with such and such because I don't like such and such. Who
Doesn't matter.
We are a community that is suffering. There was a murder in Reddit on Monday. There was a loved one of mine that was killed on yesterday. There was a home that was shot up today.
Mhm.
Even with Kenwell Gates, Pastor Gates before he died, it was the same thing that he even pushed. And even when it came to the crab fest and things that he pushed for in Williston, there were not enough of us at the table. And the deal is, many of us have the same sentiments. We feel the exact same way. But how do we transition to get into a point where we're willing to do the work after the rally? We're willing to do the work after the march. And that's the challenge that we're having. What's interesting is for those that are willing to do the work and that are at the table, they're there and they have been consistent. And
Mhm.
they're looking for allies. And when I say ally, that's a person that's not black. And they're willing to work alongside us. They're willing to work hard. They are there. They're at the table. I want to, be very thankful. We called through a volunteer list of people personally. For me, that was more than 340 people, and out of that 340 people, about 320 are ready to do this actual work to be able to spread it around. While those sound like large numbers, when we're talking about a county, and we're just talking about Gainesville right now of 287,000 residents, we need a great deal more than that. And so that means almost 50,000 of the residents are Black people. So if there's 50,000 residents of Black people, we should absolutely have at least 5,000 of those
Mhm.
willing to be at this table, willing to work together and create the change that it is that we want to see. We are suffering as a community, and not just with gun violence, but with our children in education, with our housing, with our utility bills, even with just lack of adequate food access,
Mhm.
lack of transportation. We had a person that spoke tonight at a forum that stated it took 3 hours to go from Target to East Gainesville. A person should be able to utilize public transportation to get where it is. I remember Tyra telling stories of getting up 3 o'clock in the morning just to get to work. Those types of things are so dehumanizing, and those are the kinds of things that we all should be entitled to. And so I think when we are understanding that, because even if we fix a lot of those things, then innately we would know the importance of obtaining justice for Terrell. And it should not have taken graphic pictures of what he lost as it relates to his eye and his fingers and then the other things that he's going to deal with for the rest of his life. And for us to understand that those things are absolutely preventable if us as a people are willing to do the work. Me losing a loved one and the suffering of such a large family is absolutely avoided if we are willing to unlearn some things. And I
Mhm.
think for us, maybe that's what it is. Maybe, and I don't know, so I don't have the answers. Maybe we need to get together and we need to start to heal first. Because even after so many things, I saw comments today of people making posts about, I wonder how the families feel of the shooter. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
a person's actions, they still belong to somebody.
That's right.
With one of the shooters from yesterday's event, his his family is distraught and they are heartbroken. And so it wasn't about how he was raised. And it wasn't about, but that's what the family gets because they don't condone it. You got families that are ripped apart about something that is fully preventable. And then I also want to be clear because then when we gauge, a lot of this stuff is backwards and forth. And I'm not saying about yesterday's incident, but in general, when we look at the 11 people that were indicted on the RICO case, a lot of it is you kill my friend. And so for
Mhm.
me, it's a life for a life. And then so
Mhm.
many of us are acting like we're so shocked by that mindset when literally that's what the death penalty is all about. So people in positions of power believe in a life for a life. And so I'm not saying that a life for a life is correct. What I'm saying is let's fix our community so we don't have to be having conversations about determining should it be a life for a life? If we understand that people who perpetuate violence were victims first, we work from there, I think we would see a greater level of change. And sometimes being a victim means being a victim of law enforcement.
Mhm.
Sometimes being a victim is being brutalized by police departments. And so I want to be clear with my loved ones. One of the people in the house was absolutely a victim. He was in the bed and he was asleep. He got up and took a gun from one of the assailants in order to shoot them. I'm very clear with you that if he had not done that, we would be mourning more than one death today. The Gainesville Police Department's response to that was more about criminalizing him. They executed
Mhm.
a search warrant on a home, looking to see if they could find something on him. They destroyed the home. So even after she's lost her child, they destroyed the home. I have to say that then they arrested him for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. And I'm not saying that maybe they need to look at it and resolve it. I'm saying, why was he not given the humanity to be able to grieve with the family? You saw that on the other side. They know for a fact, because of what he's under, he's not going anywhere. They would absolutely be able to find him. How is it that the law, we're expected to trust law enforcement, that even when we are victims, we're not treated like victims. We become, we still become the criminal. And so when we're talking about our protests and our marches and our rallies, what we're asking people to weigh in on that. What will it take for you all to stay at the table to enact create the change that we want to see? And we can go back definitively. And I'm asking people to read up on the Montgomery bus boycotts. People stay off of the bus for more than a year. And so that means some people were uncomfortable. That means people had to come together and give rides to work. There were stories of people who walked the soles off of their shoes,
Yep.
people who cooked food in order to help with this particular initiative. That is the type of community organizing that we need after the march. And so, additionally, whenever we have marches and rallies and protests, whoever you are, we need to, yes, educate people, yes, have speeches, but there should be definitive call to actions that we all can get behind. There should be definitive call to actions that we all should be responsible for being behind. And so, as we have collaborators and organizers, wanting people to know and understand that, and then additionally, speak out, and they should be more deliberate. I think I'll go back to the March for Freedom that happened in 2020 after George Floyd. It was such a missed opportunity because you had 7,000 people in the city together, and yet there were no actions that will bring justice to Black people in a
Mm-hmm.
where we are, the gap is so large. There was no voter registration, which we understand that all of this is a voting issue, whether people want to understand that or not. We have to leverage our power. There was nothing to move forward to help us to understand the importance of educating our children and actually helping them to be successful so that they can be law enforcement, so that they can be the doctors, so that they can be the attorneys in order to minimize a lot of the injustice. And there are ideas, there are things, and there are some level of successes, but we need to expand our reach, and we need to do it quickly because there is a lot of catching up to do, and there's a lot of damage that needs to be undone.
Yeah, it is. And I just want to say, that my heart goes out, to the families. Um, my heart goes out to all the families, because there have been several lives that have been lost in this process, and a lot of times we don't look at the person who actually um, did something to someone as a victim. But we all are victims of the system, and so that's something that we need to understand. Someone has lost their life. A lot people have lost their lives, and you lose your life in more than one way. You lose your life when you go to prison. They have mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, and a mother doesn't feel good, and family doesn't feel good when their loved one is going to be locked up in prison. That's part of
And
dying.
let's talk about prison. I think we should actually talk about that. So, being a
Mhm,
person with that level in prison, they don't realize that prisons make them worse because they
mhm,
live in a space where everybody's like, for example, I had loved ones in prison during COVID, and the fact that when COVID happened, they piled them on top of each other, and so the prison helped to spread the COVID outbreak. Or
mhm,
the fact that they witness stabbings on a daily basis, or they witness people being maimed and killed by guards with no regard to anything, or the level of disrespect and disregard. And it's that same thing as it relates to just in general. I had to go to court for a traffic deal with my older son today, and the nastiness of the judge.
mhm,
Me, because you know who I am, to call him on it. And then you're going to respect in my court. And like I told him, respect goes both ways. We have placed ourselves in a space that anything. I remember they sent me to court because I didn't have on my glasses, and mind you, they were broken. I couldn't afford to get any more. And so when we always want to justify that a person is brutalized because of what they can't afford, and a lot of the things that we are in trouble for is literally, and and TD Jake says it best. We don't lock people up for being guilty. We lock them up
mhm.
for.
Yep.
And we understand that you can become a felon because you steal something for $300. You can steal something. There are people that steal things in order to sell it, in order to be able to survive. And I mean, like pay their light bill. I mean, like stealing food. So even when you're seeing mud shots and seeing, oh, it's petty theft, no one is looking at what's behind it. Even
Mhm,
right now, I did a video about the city of Gainesville possibly moving the people that are being housed at the firehouse and at Grace Marketplace and things
mhm,
over in the Hartwood area and things like that, near where Kennedy Homes was. And most people, like, the response is, well, why do we need to put them in the center of the city? Our response should be in holding our city and our county governments accountable for providing not just long-term housing, but providing resources for people to be successful.
Mhm.
We never address the lack and the gap as it relates to mental health services. And being a person very clear, I'm like many people in my community, I suffer from severe anxiety. I work in order to address my anxiety. So even when it comes to people doing drugs and smoking marijuana and snorting, we call it snorting powder, but doing cocaine and popping mollies, a lot of this is lack of effective coping mechanisms. So as
Mhm.
we see and we call people out on it, we're further traumatizing them because we've dehumanized that they're into a lot of the things that they are in because no one gave us adequate trauma. We're not addressing that in our community. Everybody wants us to be resilient. So they don't want people to be accountable for mistreating us. They want us to be accountable for taking it and swallowing it whole and just being okay with it. And that is detrimental.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on something real quick that you just said when we talk about coping mechanisms and we talk about, addictions. So I remember there was a time when somebody said to me, we were talking about poverty and we were talking about marginalized communities. And this one person in the room said, well, I don't understand that if you don't have any money and you're having a hard time, why you keep having babies? Why you keep having babies? I just want to let people know that sex is a coping mechanism also. So while you are at home and you don't have the things that you need, you don't have money for bills, you don't have money for food or whatever, if you have a husband or you have a boyfriend that coming over, sex for an hour or a couple of however long it is takes your mind away from what is from reality just for those seconds.
And
And
not only
people
that,
need
it
to,
releases
right.
endorphins. It
And
actually
it,
releases
it
endorphins.
releases, yeah, it releases major endorphins. So people do those things. While a lot of people have money, they have adequate access to health care. They have money to go to therapists. They can go on vacations and do that. A lot of people who live in marginalized communities, the people who are in abject poverty, they can't do that. So guess what it is? It's smoking weed. It's having a drink. It's going out. It's sex. That's what it is. That is our escape, and um that's something that we really need to understand here. So I just wanted to let people understand why sometimes we just do the things that we do. If I don't have $500 to pay my rent, and I got $2, and the $50 I'm gonna get tomorrow is not going to make a difference. Well, I'm gonna take my $2 and I'm gonna go buy me a beer and smoke me a cigarette and just and dwell in that moment, even though maybe somebody would have said, well, you should have kept that $2. But I mean, that's just how it goes. So we need to understand that we are mentally traumatized. Poverty is traumatizing, and so I need to living in neighborhoods that don't have resources and opportunities is traumatizing. So
What's more traumatizing is
mhm.
the people who should offer, and I don't even mean financial support, are the very people who demean us and tear us
Yes,
down.
most
We
definitely.
have been so programmed and indoctrinated to judge people by the money they have and judge people by if they got a felony F next to their name
Mhm.
and judge people by the car that they drive and the clothes that they wear. That we are also, and I mean within our community, we are perpetuating a lot of the cycles of poverty
Yep.
because people are trying to keep up. And it's so easy for people to say, well, oh, don't keep up with other people when you've had nothing. If somebody tells you that it's simple, even to it as a robbery, is that this one quick come up can make me have something, people are willing to die for it. When you have
Yep.
nothing and all you have is your respect, because that's all you got, you are willing to die for it. And
And
being
that's what I tell people about those Jordan sneakers. When people they say, "Why you go out and buy these Jordans and you don't have?" I'm gonna tell you why. It's not the shoe. It's the what the shoe represents. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, I ain't got nothing, and yeah, we this and I got these shoes. You know what I'm saying? And as soon as you put them shoes on, and because I've been there before. Soon as you put that outfit on, you put them shoes on, and you walk outside that door. I don't care if you don't have a penny. Like you feel like you are priceless, like you got $1 million. So it's what it represents, and it just makes you just feel like, hey, I'm part of y'all too. I got this too for the moment, and I'm feeling good right now for the moment. So
But
yeah,
and
you're
so
right. You got a status
systems,
symbol, and that's just
but systems wise, when you think about it, what do companies do? They, if you're going to go and apply for a job,
mhm.
are they going to hire the person in a nice suit, or are they going to hire the person who only afford a t-shirt and jeans?
Right,
So it's
exactly.
ironic. These systems are set in place that
Mhm.
dictate your value by how you look. They tell you about your hair should be a particular way.
Mhm.
These things, and it's the same system that tells you where you're placing too much emphasis on outward appearance, where you set it up that way, and then you beat me up for it. And I think, and it's so very difficult for people to understand and comprehend that. People don't understand and comprehend the concept of being rich. But when a lot of people start to get money and stuff like that, they say, well, they're gonna pull up in a nice car and they're gonna live in a project. And
Mhm.
so the deal is, a lot of times moving out of the projects is extremely difficult because it's all that anyone knows, because they've not been exposed or experienced anything else. And so we perpetuate these things to keep people where they feel like they're trapped in cages. And then we
Mhm.
also want to make them accountable, just them accountable and responsible. I keep hearing people say over and over and over, our new generation, our kids are different. They look at the world different. They look at the world by the manner in which we fed the world to them. They look
Mhm.
different because we made them different. And I want to state some of that was kids are raised out of trauma. And so often parents on that do as I say, not as I do. We're going to do what parents, we're going to do what parents do, not what they say. We're going to be with men like our fathers. We're going to be
Mhm.
with women like our mothers. So sometimes when we're looking at the children, we need to look at generational stuff, not this right there. Sometimes when we're looking at children, we need to look at how we're going to impact and help and support the children.
It does exist. Rich privilege does exist.
I
Most
was
definitely.
what y'all um at least on the topic, like I was watching some in Africa. It was like uh,
Your sound is horrible, son.
Yeah.
you
I should have bought you a laptop for your birthday.
I got my this is a brand new phone. I don't know y'all might
That's all right.
I
We're
got
going to keep it moving because we're going to think about the future to where we're going to be able to have some really good equipment, and we're going to be doing this thing. We ain't going to have to worry about your sound. How about that? We're going to
it's
look toward.
still
We're going to be proactive. We're going to be proactive right
I'm trying to figure out how
now. Okay.
is it better now? I guess.
Yes, sir. It is.
But it's I was watching this doc about these lions. It was like six lions, and it was just like as I crazy how like I sort of kind of seen the relationship, like basically how they acted, and we are trained to act in a way. And it was six lions. They took over. They killed over the lions in Africa. Like them six by going pride by pride, killing their babies. You know what I'm saying? Having their own babies. The reason like they was able to do it because of how vicious they was, but because the other pride come together against that one pride, and it in turn they made them separate even more. It was like the more them six lions was able to go through and do what they wanted to do to the point to where they got be like they can physically overtake, where it end up separating and different stuff like that. Of how in America, like if you look at it, just basically see how basically they basically was they put all the other lines, they made them separate amongst one another, part by piece by piece by piece, to the point where 45% of all and the whole like it's the same type of deal that be happening here to where we get to the point of like where you say where it's like you do nothing, so you feel like you got to take or keep to the, we just made ourselves another to the point to where you know what I'm saying. These brutality stuff is just
Mhm.
on top of what another. You know what I'm saying? Like
You
all
still cutting in and out, Ken.
that was
Awesome.
I
You
don't,
cutting it
I don't
up.
know.
So
Okay.
one of the
We over here
viewers,
like cut it, cut
so
it.
one of the viewers asked the question. So, what is your thought on how Biden treats the poor and the low class? And so I wanted to answer very honestly. I don't. I know how he does, but the reason that I reserve opinion on that is because
Mhm.
we need to understand that the president is not where our power is, and I think a lot
Yep.
of people think
Not.
that the president, in the manner in which the structure is, the most power that we have in any community is what's called home rule, and that's in our
Mhm.
local community. We have the greatest amount of power to enact the greatest amount of change in our local communities. And so that's our city government, that's our county government. Then our
Mhm.
next level of power is our state government. And then it
Mhm.
goes up to the president. And I can give you an example. So, for example, when President Obama was president, and they did the stimulus to the businesses and did the stimulus states like that. In in Florida, we
In
couldn't be
Florida.
the stimulus money because the
Mhm.
governor Rick Scott refused to take the funds. Ron
Right.
DeSantis has refused to take some of the funds. And so when the people also don't understand that when the federal government allocates funds, which is gives funds out, they don't
Mhm.
dictate how the funds are spent. Your state government does, and then the money that goes from the state government, your local government does. And so I can use the city of Gainesville for example. One of the things I'm extremely disturbed by is they just increased the budget for Gainesville Police Department by $6.8 million. So that wasn't at the presidential level. That wasn't even at the state level. They understand that at the state level, Ron DeSantis has passed a bill where you can't defund the police. So if you know that, why do you keep increasing the budget, understanding that they're not doing a good job with the funds that they actually have?
Mhm.
So that's part of our problem. So as a people, need to understand, leverage our power here. Additionally, I'm not into party. I'm into
Yeah.
people. And so
Mhm.
because we're into party and because we're not into people in a definitive manner, we keep ending up with the same thing. And I even realized tonight we did a voter forum for the city of Gainesville and then also for the mayor's race. Number one, for the mayor, there's only one person out of I think it's 10 mayor candidates that doesn't identify as a man. And then for the city commission candidates, all of them are men, and only one of them is
Yeah.
black.
Mhm.
We don't have representation. And so while there are some people that I do believe will represent us in action, we also as a people need to represent us. Some of the work that I do is on a state level, and we're trying to build a coalition. We're trying to build this building block of actual voters. And if I can tell you the level of disgust that our people have of us coming to knock on their door and trying to get them to exercise that level of power, we have some indoctrination that has taken place that we absolutely have to undo. And if we do that starting in our local legislature, then we don't have to get stuck with presidents like President Biden. We don't have to get stuck with people at higher levels. They're so busy pandering to the other side, they're not willing to fight for justice.
Mhm. Yep. And I feel the same way. And I mean, this this election, we already know because we're going to have a show about that, but I sit down and I look at some of the candidates and I'm like, I'm the one to admit because I'm a voter and I'm going to vote for it. I don't care if we voting for popcorn and chips. If that's on the ballot, I'm a voter. And, I have sometimes have changed my voter status, to independent or, because I know that Democrat and Republicans, there's a lot of money behind those two parties and a lot of power behind those two parties. But I really do feel that if the people come together and we are able to have like an independent party or we're able to make up a party for ourselves or we all come together and we actually have real people and real candidates and people who care about people, there's a lot of things that we can do. I mean, I always said that, that we should have a people's party, but this is what we
I
have to work with. And I tell people all the time, it's kind of like this is what we have to work with. So we're going to have to work it. However it is that we need to work it, we're going to have to work it until, like we were saying earlier, until we invoke change. It is what it is. I'm willing to work. I do understand that things
I
need to
agree.
take
I
change.
feel like
But
just as a
go
young person,
ahead.
and I agree with what you. I said I agree with as much as like as a young person though, because I feel like me and my mom probably struggle like our mindset at least when it comes to things like that. So like we went through it this whole buy in the beginning with when they first came out. I was like, I'm not gonna vote. Like I'm straight. She's like, no, you go because you gotta get. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, that's your power. I feel like at the end of the day, at least when it comes to presidential, that is what it is.
Mhm.
It don't matter. Like at the end of the day, it do matter when it comes to the mayors and city commissioners and stuff like that. Of like, oh, President Biden next to president, literally what you explained, he really don't make no decision. That make decisions to affect you, but he's not going to. So like it's on the other side. So it's like at the end of the day, that's you should be focused on who the mayor, who your city, who are these people that you can call and have a conversation with. So it's like at least for us as black people, we have what Biden doing, what the Senate, these people that's doing stuff that at the end of the day, local power, like people want to know why the Republicans is because they got their local stuff on lock. Who get in where they supposed to get in because at the end
Exactly.
of the day, they gonna do what they want. You know what I'm saying? How they run. We lose that, so we never worry is the local person a Democrat, not what type of Republican they worry about is their Republican, but what type of what we support is you going what we going in this person. You know what I'm saying? So it's like in the day we have to take that type of approach.
And
I
they
want
do
to
the work.
go right ahead,
They
Tara.
do. They do the work. Like I'm just gonna back on what Keon was saying. Republicans, and he's right. They do the work, so they do worry about the local. They have local entities. They have groups, and they support groups, and they do the little work, and then boom, And I just feel like with a lot of Democrats, we don't. A lot of us sometimes don't do the work, and
So it's
so
not even that we don't. So I want to respond to that, and then I'm going to respond to
okay,
Mr. Hill.
yeah.
So number one, it's not that we don't do the work. We are
Hmm.
so busy trying to. We need to stay true to self. And so what
Hmm.
I mean by that is we run scared. And MLK says it best. It's the white moderate that's the enemy of justice.
Oh yeah, most
People
definitely.
don't understand that. So the manner in which the Democratic Party is, we always want to be, oh, I'm taking the higher road. Oh, I'm being the better person.
Hmm.
And so I'm very clear on my personal lives when I'm cussing everybody out. I don't subscribe to respectability. And it is because my belief that respectability is trying to appeal to the morals of people who don't have morals. And that transitions to me into my response to Mr. Hill. I actually don't agree that burning, looting, and murdering should not happen. I'm going to be real with you. And the
Hmm.
reason for that is number one, when we burning stuff, it's not ours. We don't own anything. So us burning and looting something, you literally feel like you're taking things back. And so literally they don't. And then what's interesting is that when people are getting groceries and things, so the groceries is shut down, that is deemed as looting. But when white people do it, and you could look at the headlines, it was viewed differently. I want to look throughout history, and we talk about Black Wall Street, and we talk about Rosewood, and we talk about the Whites riots. All of those were white people burning, looting, and murdering because
Exactly.
of power. And so
Hmm.
we need to know and understand that. The deal is white people, and I have to say this very clearly, are very afraid that we want revenge. And that's not what we want. What
Thank
we
you.
want is what is justly ours. We live
Hmm.
in a country that was built on our backs. Literally, we created and built the labor force. Literally, we built and created everything that was here. it's absolutely ours. And so
Mhm.
there this whole fear, and even too when we're looking at a lot of the laws, they're very clear with this, that it's all about keeping and maintaining power, because they believe that if they become outnumbered, that we would
Mhm.
actually take over and then handle them in the manner
Mhm.
they've handled us.
Yeah.
And so while I don't believe that looting or murdering might absolutely be there, I want people also to understand that that absolutely is a manner in which white people have leveraged power. And if there was ever a doubt in your mind, I would like for you to look at January the 6th when they stormed that Capitol, and I would like for you to see the things that have happened since then. And I would like
Mhm.
to see how even the Supreme Court has been a pawn by keeping people distracted so that people weren't even paying attention to the January the 6th hearings. And it's been that
Mhm.
way throughout time. We can look at our Civil War. We can look at the Trail of Tears. We can look at every level and juncture of history and understand how we became stolen labor that was a stolen people that built this country on stolen land. And it was absolutely from looting,
Mhm.
rioting, and
Mhm.
murder.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
They just use a cute little word called
Yeah.
we settled or we came upon, we discovered or we conquered. It's the same stuff. Violence.
And then it's like we don't have like it's literally like what you said. If it was reversed, like say it's happened on January 6th, white people would not be letting it go. Still be talking about that like that's the worst thing in history. Like they really
Right now,
tried
they talk
to
about
take
Joe
over
Biden and Hunter Biden.
they would literally be us. We was going
When
at it
you
for like a month,
you
but
go out, so you need to stay
let it go.
real close. Right? Right. So right now, if that would have been reversed, we would have been dead. Like seriously, we would have been. It would have been a whole
Right.
bunch of people, a
But
bunch of black people
that's true. But
dead.
I feel like not even past that say everything would happen the way it happened. They didn't. It was us, but people. At the end of the day, bro, to this day, on the news, they was in
Mm-hmm.
on all the news stations, bro, for years. Like they was talking about it for years in history.
Mm-hmm.
With the
Yeah.
with them white people did that, then we was on to the next thing. Like it's about that no more. And it's like that's but we like that's not how we look at stuff. So and what we not looking to hold them accountable when stuff like that stuff happen the way it do.
But what? So speaking of our show today about what after the protest, right? So that wasn't successful for them. But let's hypothetically say it was successful for them. Can you answer that, Shanae? What would have happened if it was successful? That January 6th was successful for them.
It would be a coup. And so I want people to know and understand. So we're going to utilize the state of Florida as an example.
Mm-hmm.
So while they weren't successful with that, that has caused them to double down and ensure that they take the rights of the people. And so we're seeing that with voting rights legislation that has been passed by Ron DeSantis. We are seeing that as it relates to the constitutional carry, and so that goes back to Second Amendment, which was the Second Amendment, and the purpose of it was to terrorize slaves and newly freed slaves. And so
Mm-hmm.
this whole constitutional carry amendment is to be able to do that. It's to be able to arm white people to terrorize us.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds very harsh, it sounds very scary, but it's absolutely that. And when you ever question that, you look at cases like Trayvon Martin's, you look at cases like Marquise Glockton, and these were people that they were encountered, and the white person was the aggressor and killed them, and then felt very entitled. But then you also look at cases like Marissa Alexander and Diamonds Ford, who are people who utilized their right to carry legally,
Mm-hmm.
trying to lock them away in the prison system. So helping people to understand that meaning of the laws and the manner in which they're enacted, well, that sound great. And the level of protection for us, they're actually absolutely the opposite. But looking at now, as DeSantis is trying to get rid of two black voting districts, there's a bill in Arizona to stop people from being able to record Court. The Supreme Court got rid of protections from us, from officers who don't Mirandaize and read us our Miranda rights. They also increased protections for law enforcement officers who brutalize us. And so, what has happened is we are so distracted by other things that we're not even realizing that right up under our nose, they're working to enact laws to be very successful in order to be able to take over in the manner they deem appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, in order for us to get ready to wrap the show up, because I'm going back with family, we want the point and the takeaway from this is it is time to get deliberate and get connected. And I'm not stating that you need to connect with me or Danny or Tyra, but I am asking for people to do a heart check. And I'm asking them to find out extremely what is important to them that they are willing to fight for and not give up and back down. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very sure that my children are what I'm willing to fight for and not back down. And because of that, that means that puts me in the spirit of many different things because so many things are interrelational as it relates to them. And the reason I want us to do a heart check, because if you're a biblical person, Proverbs 4:13 is very clear. It's guard your heart above all else, for from it is where life flows. Your heart dictates your actions. From there, I want us to determine where is it that we're going to take our skill set and be of value. And that could be education advocacy, that could be criminal justice, that can be affordable housing, or any other aspect of city government or county government. But it is time to get off our couches. It is time to stop finding reasons not to actually come to this table and willing to put in the work. For me, and that work is some of the work that I do is even with Just Income Gainesville, we actually give for some people, depending on who was chosen, we're doing a research project right now for universal basic income for our returning citizens. And we're wanting to do a research-based study. So it's not just us talking about the difference of offering support for people to re-enter into society, but also to be able to compare for the people who are not able to get the $600 a month and the difference that is
Mm-hmm.
in their lives. We have been so busy criminalizing people, but we don't actually take ownership of how difficult it is for them to re-enter this society and be able to give it all they got. And so we are a part of some of the things that are actually wrong. Some of my other advocacy is Black Parent Support Network. And there we want literally our mission is to heal, love, heal, and equip our community. And so that means bringing that sense of community. That means very deliberate about healing and mental health. We understand that addressing our mental health can actually help our health outcomes. And even with Florida Forward Coalition, a lot of the work that we do, people deem it as political. It's not political, it's social justice. And so that's our GRU initiative because their GRU is reaming us. That is advocating for the appropriate things to be done with quality affordable housing. That is our gun violence awareness initiative. So the fact that we still have people that are running for office that think that the manner in which you address gun violence is gun buybacks is absolutely disgusting. But in order for us to be able to change those things, in order for us to advocate for Terrell, for him to get justice, in order for us to advocate so no one else has to go through what Terrell went through, we have to remain united as a community. And I want to acknowledge that we know and understand that that is extremely difficult. So I would like and we're imploring you all to come to the table, to our protests, to our rallies, to our marches, but then also create an environment where friends and loved ones are accountable. Get to a point that you're training and educate your children on advocacy and being a part of this work. Anyone that knows me knows my children are absolutely a part of this work. My son spent his 23rd birthday out knocking on doors in order to address gun violence. And not because we're some martyrs and not because we're some sacrifices. We understand that in order for the change to be done, it's just like any other job. There is work that has to be done. It is our consistency, not our intensity, that is going to ensure that we are actually successful. And I want to repeat that when I say consistency rather than intensity, it's just like when you go and you get a prescription from the doctor. The doctor's going to tell you, let's say if he takes a pill once a day for 30 days, you're taking that pill once a day for 30 days because that's what's going to heal you. If you take all 30 of those pills at one time, it's going to destroy you. And that's what's happening. We're showing up for the intensity, but we're not showing up for the consistency. And that's where we're falling short and it's being detrimental to us in our community.
So I want to say, I know that there's a lot of things that everybody can do. I want you to be willing to do something. Um, I know we always talk about boards and but you can start in your own community. So I just want to let people understand that if you live in an apartment complex, if you live in your neighborhood, you can start something in your community with others. You can knock on doors. Y'all can get together. You can have community meetings, talk about what's needed, talk about what's needed in your community for kids. How are you going to go about that? Who you can work with. And I say it all the time. It doesn't matter. Your neighbors are your neighbors and they live by you. So it doesn't matter if you like them or not, right? So you live there. That's your community. So, I want you to try to find something, even if it's just really small, to get things started in your community, because those small steps is what's going to take you higher. Another thing is, and something that we also express on loud conversations all the time, we do want you to go to the voting polls. We really do want that. We want you to be, we want you to vote. So we're always going to say that. Some people out there don't know anything about voting, they don't know who the candidates are, they don't know where to go, or you can contact us, or if you don't want to contact us, there's several other people. You can go to the supervisor of elections office on Main Street, and you can get all the information that you need. We'll send you information or somebody your way. We'll even send people to your neighborhood to come to your neighborhood and talk to you, and talk to people in your neighborhood. So that's another way that you can make a difference, right? For Terrell and for everyone else, for everybody in your community. So, I want you to start doing that. And that's where it starts. And, we just need to come together and we need to continue this. We need to continue to demand justice. Nothing leads without demand. I'm just going to let you know that you have to demand justice. You have to demand justice. Nobody's going to give it to you. You have to demand it. So that means every action you do, everything you do, you are making a demand for justice.
Keon, any closing words?
I hope Terrell doing better. And I to the young lady that lost her life. I know we can talk about it, but just condolences to the family, and like just this week alone, I think even for me, and it'll hit me hard stuff that's kind of happening, and it's like it just crazy me as I talk that we grew up here and we all we really know it's not really this just like at the end of the day the circumstances, how like just the culture that is breeding something that we gotta stop, like see the next generation thrive, and we want to see what it's talked about doing.
Yeah, it's crazy, but you know what? It's something that we actually can get together and we can start to fix. See, that's the whole thing about it. I want to tell people that, and it's just not a dream, because I get it all the time from a lot of people. Oh, why are you doing that? Nobody's going to change. It's a waste of time. They're not going to change it. Let me tell you something. Change is inevitable. That's one thing that I know. It's always going to happen, and I know that we can change things if we work together and do the work that we need to do to change things. And sometimes the work is not always going to be pretty. It's not pretty. Sometimes you're not always going to want to hear what you want to hear, and sometimes you're not. Sometimes, because I've done it before, you're not always going to get to say what you want to say. Sometimes, but there's always another. There's always another time, another chance when you keep at it, and you can use whatever you do to create change. If you're a student, use your peers. If you are a nurse, you're working with people. I'm a property manager, and everybody knows that. But I use what I have to empower the people who live on my property. And some of them might no, they probably don't. But if they understand that what I say and what I do is for their better good, okay, then they will understand it. It's going to take a while, but then they will understand it. And so I just keep on getting. You might not like it now, but guess what? This is going to help you, because then you'll be able to go on and help somebody else. And that's what it's about. So I'm ready to, I'm always ready to do the work. And anybody who wants to do work, or anybody who's interested, or anybody who wants to talk to me, Keon, Shanae, whomever you might want to talk to, let us know. Let's do what we want to do. You want to have something in your community, that's fine. If you want to bring loud conversations to your community, we can do that. You got a community center, we'll come there, talk with the residents. We was even talking about having a live loud conversation where we have an audience and we take questions and we talk with one another. We have to
Well, we
do
actually are doing that. We're just waiting for Nate to return.
okay, yeah. So
We would
we
like to
have
have
to
it
do what we need to do. So I've changed loud conversations platforms many times. Everybody know I used to do music back in the day. Loud conversation has just evolved, and I'm happy that where it is today with you all
And
and
so for
trying to
other people that they'll know, there will be roundtables with our young people so they can talk about why they engage in gun violence. I want to be clear that yesterday's event wasn't young people. And so we need to understand that this is a societal issue within our community, and it's all of our issue.
yes.
Additionally, for me, I have information sessions every week. This week, it'll be tomorrow at 6 p.m. So anyone that actually is interested in with those information sessions, you can
Mhm.
actually come and learn about the work that's already done and actually that's already has been done. That now we need to get people plugged in so they can take that work and then be able to carry it. Most of our issues are interrelated. So it's not of benefit to any of us for any one, two, three, four, five people to be working on it. We now have to build teams and get those teams to work interrelationally. What is very clear is people that are at the table in positions of power, they don't understand us. They don't understand our community, and many of them are not willing to do the work to even understand. So the people who are willing to do the work are the people we need to come to the table alongside us in order to be able to make those things happen. For anyone who can't make an information session on tomorrow, they're every Wednesday at 6 p.m. In addition to that, we do separate trainings for people in order to understand. I need people to get comfortable with being on their phone and making phone calls, knocking on doors, talking to people, and having very deliberate conversations while in person. We need people to do a lot of data entry because there's a lot of
Mhm.
data to collect. We collect that data because that's what informs us on the best decisions for the people in our community. We compile that data so that we can go advocate on behalf of the people in our community. I need people who want to come forward to be those people to come at the forefront and be willing to be trained. You don't jump in this knowing everything. There's a knowledge base that has to be developed over time through research, through curriculum development. You develop all that you need, but you have to be
Mhm.
willing to do that work. We need people willing to raise funds because much of this work is being carried on the backs of us that's doing it. So not only are we giving our time, but we're giving all of our money and all of our resources. And it's not for ourselves, it's for the community at large. And so if we spread a lot of this work around and we spread a lot of the need around, we're going to get a great deal more done with a lot less invested. And that's what it's about. We are now in a space that we can't feel safe in our homes. We should have taken ownership of this a long time ago, but now more than ever, if any. And the fact that even after yesterday, there was already another shooting today, and there perhaps could be another one tomorrow and every other day. We need to stop waiting until it directly impacts, realize that it already directly impacts all of us.
Yes. Okay. Well, I guess we're gonna close the show now. Of course, like every week, we're gonna see y'all next week. I guess next week we will. I will discuss with Keon and Shanae what our next show is
I
going to
think
be
we're gonna go back to GRU. Hopefully,
about.
nothing
GRU,
happens,
hopefully
and we'll be
about
back to
GRU next
GRU.
week. Yeah, so yeah, that's a conversation for 3 hours. But anyway, so we will see all of you next week, and remember, do something. It's not that we know that you can do something, but are you willing to do something? So please do something. Like I always say, collect your thoughts, but keep your conversations loud, and we'll see you next week.